The date is Thursday, September 7th, 2017, and this is the DA Sports Podcast. Welcome to the DA Sports Podcast, where everything is made up and the points don't matter. That's right, the points don't matter, just like a Texas A&M 44-10 lead. I am John Lowe, broadcasting from the corner of Price and Prospect and Spruce at the Daily Athenaeum in downtown Morgantown, West Virginia. And I am joined by Joseph Severino, Jack Tolman, and Julia Mellett here in part one of the DA Sports Podcast. How you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Doing pretty well.
Good, man. How you doing?
All right. Very, very, very talkative bunch. So we got some news going on over the past week, including the Virginia Tech game. But what we like to do here in part one, as we always do, is we talk about some of the sports that don't ordinarily get the attention of most of the mainstream regional media. So we're going to start out with the volleyball team. Ordinarily, Taylor Hall would come in, but she was unavailable today. Basically, all you need to know is that the Mountaineers went up to the Twin Cities in Minnesota and played the second-ranked Minnesota Golden Gophers as well as Tennessee and UTSA. They were swept on Friday night by Minnesota, but they were able to sweep Tennessee and UTSA on Saturday. That brings them to a 4-2 record. So look out for the Mountaineers. I believe they go to West Point next weekend. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, check out on WVUsports.com as well as follow at Taylor Hall WVU for all of your volleyball updates. Joining us, like I said earlier, is Joseph Severino. He is our cross-country writer. Joseph, how is everything doing with the cross-country team?
Well, so far so good. I mean, you can't have a better start than what they had last Friday in Lehigh. The first four runners to cross the line were all Mountaineers, and then their fifth runner came in at 11th. 21 team score, completely killed everyone. So, well, next week, this Friday, they'll go to Penn State, and it'll be tougher competition there. They didn't really run against anyone too tough, or that finished above them in their region last year. So this Friday, they'll get to race against Penn State, obviously, and that's probably one of the best running squads in the conference, or in the division.
All right. Anyone stand out up there in Bethlehem?
Well, Maggie Drasba, I mean, she killed it as always. She's on a really hot streak right now. Her best two races have probably been her last two, going back to last year. But then some of the younger girls stepped up. And then Amy Cashin finished in second. She also did very well.
All right. Any other? I mean, you did kind of touch on a little bit about Penn State, but what other schools will they be running against? This coming, it'll be Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah, Friday. Who will they be running against?
I haven't looked at the list. I need to. But yeah.
We always pride ourselves on being prepared here at the Daily Athenaeum. No, it's okay, man. It's all right. So, all right, awesome. So it looks like look out for the cross-country team this year. I believe they're just a fall sport. They don't dip into the spring, right? Yeah, they're just in the fall. All right, so awesome. Thanks, Joe. And where can people follow you out on Twitter and Instagram?
I'm at JJ_Severino on Twitter and Instagram.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Joe. Jack, the men's soccer team, Ron LeBlanc and his troops came home from the West Coast pretty satisfied. You know, they had a couple of great wins out there on the West Coast, and then they come home and they're ranked. What happened this week? What'd you see?
Well, this weekend they had their first little bump in the road against Monmouth. It was a 0-0 draw that went into overtime. But the team has been doing pretty well. They started the season with three straight wins, and they posted 3 clean sheets out of their 4 games. So the defense has been very impressive.
All right. They also beat Wright State on Friday. I mean, I know you weren't, Jack, I know you weren't at the game. I was there. But, I mean, how much did you look at the box score? I mean, what can you tell us from that game, from that win?
I mean, it's kind of been a similar story in other games as well. Jad Arslan has really taken up the role as the leader this year, and he has 4 goals so far in 4 games, and Wright State was probably his best performance with 2.
All right, the men's soccer team will return to action on Saturday, presumably against the University of Central Florida. We don't know if there are going to be any postponements or cancellations due to Hurricane Irma. We will keep you posted on the daonline.com/sports and at the DA Sports on Twitter and Instagram. And Jack, where can people follow you on Twitter and Instagram?
On Twitter, you can follow me at Jack M. Tolman. And on Instagram, it's just Jack Tolman. Tolman is Tolman.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Jack. And last but not least, women's soccer team Izzo Brown's troops returned. Well, I guess they didn't really return home. They were already home. But after losing to the University of Virginia, they kind of had a dip in the polls. Julia Mellett, who is one of our women's soccer writers, along with Connor Hicks. What did you see on Saturday when they took on Penn State?
That was a fantastic game. I was very pleased with what I saw. That was the very first time they've ever beaten the #1 at home, which was great. Coach Izzo Brown's press conference afterward was very pleasing. She was incredibly satisfied with what she had seen. But as always, she ended the press conference by saying there's always room to improve. Not much to improve on, though, with the record we have now. We're 4-1, 2-0 in exhibition. When we took on Wright State, that was a win on Monday. I wasn't there. I was still covering baseball.
Yeah.
Just ended last night, so now I'm firmly in fall sports. Our win over Wright State was across the board 2-0. We are currently 2-0 in Wright State competition, which is nice.
Yeah, I think the volleyball team plays them at some point too, so we can improve on that also.
Yeah. Our next match will be against Duke. It will be a rematch of the 2016 Elite 8 competition. We played Duke 2 times last season. We went 3-1 in Durham, and then they came to us and we beat them 1-0 at Dick Dalesk. Duke is currently number 11 in the NCAA coaches poll. We are currently number 3. So that should be a good game on September 8th. Then September 10th, we play Richmond. We beat them in 2016 4-1. And then after that, we're traveling to Princeton, New Jersey to play Princeton and then LaSalle. And Princeton is ranked 34th. And LaSalle we haven't played since 2014, but we beat them 4-1.
Okay.
So it should be, hopefully, a lot of positive things to write about in the recaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And, these are the wins that matter for Izzo Brown because the Big 12, in terms of strength, has been pretty shoddy ever since West Virginia joined it back in 2012. So
we start our Big 12 competition on September 22nd in Waco against Baylor.
Okay. So.
And we beat them 2-0 in 2016. So
wow, you're loaded with stats today.
I mean, they're positive. They're all positive stats. So we're hoping for a lot of W's in the stat book.
Yeah, that'd be great. If it weren't for 4 more minutes in that Virginia game, then WVU would be. I guess they wouldn't. I guess you could still call them undefeated if they just had a tie. But yeah, I mean, very competitive team this year. They still have that regulation loss streak that I don't believe they've allowed a loss. In regulation time at home since 2013 or 2014.
2009.
That's conference though.
That was conference.
That's conference.
What are you talking
I'm talking about has WVU lost in the first 90 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, and I don't think they have in at least 3 years. It could be 2009 for all I know. Izzo Brown always has them competing.
It's a strong team every single year.
Yeah, and as Chris said last week, she's one of the best coaches, not just in women's soccer, but in all of college sports. So expect West Virginia to do great things this year. And hopefully just, a little bit better than last year because, they were really good last year. They were just a little bit too far away. So That'll do it for part 1. Stay on the line for part 2. We'll break down the Virginia Tech game, and we'll have Kayla from the East Carolinian on to talk about the Pirates in part 3. So stay on the line.
Welcome back to the DA Sports Podcast. I'm Patrick Kotnik, Assistant Sports Editor here at the Daily Athenaeum, joined by my fellow Assistant Sports Editor John Lowe and Sports and Managing Editor Chris Jackson. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing good, you know. Crazy weekend of sports, that's for sure, especially with football. But hey, at least we got the home opener Saturday. Looking forward to being back at Mile Fiskar Stadium.
You know, considering I screwed up the ending on part one, I'm just glad to be back on this podcast.
So hey, you're okay. I think we've all screwed up before.
So a lot to talk about, a lot going on this week. We're gonna recap Sunday's season opener, WVU and Virginia Tech, and preview the East Carolina game this Saturday. But first, there's some news about the NCAA today about possibly changing the rule about graduate transfers, saying that they could be eligible right away instead of having to sit out a year. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think that's a good idea. Obviously, I think you shouldn't have to meet a certain GPA requirement like they're talking about. But I think my thing is, if coaches can just leave out of the blue and completely just leave their players, why can't players just leave after a year or two and go somewhere else?
And
you're 18, 19 years old. You got to do what's best for yourself sometimes.
And a lot of times, too, like I just feel like it's not really fair for the player having to sit out a whole year. I mean, I get he's able to practice, I mean, that's fair. But to sit out a whole, be away from the game for a whole season, I mean, that's I don't think that's fair.
Like, transfer rates will probably go up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be like a huge epidemic.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. And when I found out about it in our group chat that Julia Mellett, our women's soccer writer, she put it in there. I don't think it should be just limited to certain players with good grades. I think it should be for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think like this Javon Durant thing. He's not leaving because
he's leaving for
family reasons.
Yeah, it's personal. We'll leave it at that. But I think for what I've been told on all that, he should be eligible immediately. Everyone's got different situations.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do what's best for yourself. If a coach can go somewhere else and not have to sit out a year, I know they're getting paid, but why can't a player do the same thing?
Yeah, exactly.
And students can transfer. Why can't the players have the same rules and stuff?
Mm-hmm. Like I said, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best. And like kind of what I was going back to, with the fact that they had to sit out a whole year. Then there's rust. They come back, play that following year. They can be rusty and all that.
Yeah,
so
you kind of saw that with Greer for half a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, Greer looked just as good as advertised. But transfers, it would help this program out a lot because West Virginia's had a lot. You had Greer, Jack Allison, the quarterback from Miami.
TJ
Simmons, the wide receiver from Alabama. Dana Holgerson said if he was eligible, he would be one of the top guys. He's just that good. Obviously, if Nick Saban recruits you, I pretty much trust that. I think you're really good.
It would have made things interesting last year, too, if Greer would have been eligible, seeing that quarterback battle between Skyler and Will Greer. I mean, that it would have made things interesting. I'm saying that's all I'm saying.
Actually, it would have been. I would have loved to have seen the media fallout from that. That would have been
a really fun story to follow.
Very fascinating, and maybe Skyler wouldn't have left Morgantown with such a bad taste in his mouth because he thought everyone here hated him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he wouldn't have been starting anyway.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so moving on from that, we're going to recap this past Sunday season opener against Virginia Tech. Really great game by both teams. I thought for West Virginia, under the circumstances, having to replace 8 starters on defense and having their offense have to go up against one of the top arguably one of the best defenses they're going to play against this year. I thought they played really well. So overall, where do you guys' takeaways from the game?
I don't think Virginia Tech won that game. I think West Virginia lost that game.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia beat itself. They had a couple of breakdowns. You had that big play to Cam Phillips on the sideline. Cam Phillips is obviously an NFL caliber receiver. He'll be in the top few rounds upcoming year, but he had that one big play, blown covers. You had that big Josh Jackson run, special teams, that one kickoff return. Then Dana gets out unsportsmanlike, which definitely cost them. So it's West Virginia shot itself in the foot, and Tony Gibson said 69 of our 72 plays were great, but 3 of them cost us the game.
It was those 3 plays. It was 2 blown coverages and that Josh Jackson run. You take those away, it's a whole different game. I believe. And like I said, for our defense, having to replace 8 starters, they were physical. I mean, they were. They weren't all the way disciplined there, but I mean, for the most part, that's asking a lot for a young defense like that.
I'm never concerned about a Tony Gibson defense. I know they lose a lot of guys, but Tony Gibson always proves time and again that he's going to have good defenses. And the guy that really stood out to me on defense. Obviously, you have guys like Kaiser, killed another guy in the field pretty much. But Dylan Tonkery really stood out. The Bridgeport native, the brother of West Tonkery. He was in the backfield all the time. I believe he finished with 1.5 tackles for the loss. Really impressed me. And the scary part is, David Long's going to come back in a few weeks, and Tonkery probably won't be a starter.
And the beauty part about the schedule right now, this is like the lull in the schedule. You know, we got East Carolina, Delaware State, and Kansas. So, I mean, Kansas did win a game, but, you know.
Hey, Kansas beat Texas last year.
True. They beat Southeast Missouri State pretty handily also. But, am I the only one in the room that thinks it's hilarious when Dana gets in on Sportsmanlike? I know we get the 15 yards, but I find it so...
Because he gets so mad. But that's the problem. It cost them, though. That rule was basically the Dana Holgerson rule.
I know.
About that stuff.
Yeah, it took him out of field goal range. You know, that's...
It did.
Yeah, I know. I know that you get the 15-yard penalty, but, man, those GIFs are priceless.
Oh, they're really funny. Yeah, they are. But another thing that stood out to me was the play calling early on. They wouldn't run the ball much. I know they were taking what the defense gave them, but Justin Crawford, 2 carries in the first 3 drives. Guy that's as good as him isn't getting the ball at all.
You kind of got the sense, too, like prior to the game, that they're going to run the ball. I mean, they have a talented backfield with Crawford, McCoy, and Petaway, you know. And the other thing is, we didn't see Petaway till the fourth quarter.
Yeah, we got 2 carries in the fourth, too.
So, I mean, that was strange there to not see them go run, not to see them run the ball early.
I know a lot of people are mad about that 4th and 2 going for it. I would have gone for it. But the thing was, it wasn't a good play call.
Yeah, I didn't like
because you have a righty quarterback rolling out left, you limit half the field.
I wouldn't have gone for it.
It's okay to go for it there, but it was just a bad play call. That's the thing.
No, heck no. It's first quarter. Take the points.
Do you trust Mike Mulaney though making that long of a field goal? That's the thing.
Let's say how long was the one that he knocked in off the upright? How long was that? Was that 30?
I was right in that end zone.
What was about 36, 38, something around that range.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would have gone for it because Mike Mulaney, I don't think he had that leg for that distance, but it was just a bad play call is what it was. You don't have a ready rollout left like that.
But offensively, I mean, I thought West Virginia, they're fantastic. Racked up 592 total yards on offense. Greer, had a rough first quarter there. You could tell. Looked a little timid. You could tell he was a little rusty. But after that, throws for 371 yards, 3 touchdowns, had that 1 interception. What are you guys' thoughts on the offensive play in the game?
He lived up to the hype except for the start. Obviously, he had that 1 interception. That was a bad decision right there. The whole defense ate that one alive, but Greer looked good. He's got NFL written all over him, too. He looks like an NFL quarterback already.
John, any thoughts?
Nope.
But, yeah, you had him. You had Gary Jennings.
Yeah.
The coaching staff was right about this. The top 3 receivers, they were also right about not having depth. Getting Marcus Sims will help because they need a guy in these crossing routes, a guy that's fast like him.
Sorry. I interrupted you.
You're good. I was actually done. So.
How convenient. I was really impressed with Gary Jennings. I didn't know he was going to be that effective against the lunch pail defense of Bud Foster and Virginia Tech. And you're right, Marcus Sims will create an added wrinkle to that core. But man, those first quarter, you gotta catch those passes. And I know Karan, that was kind of Will Greer. It was a little too short, but. Man, you gotta catch those passes in the first quarter. I mean, WVU could have easily been up by. They could have easily won by 3.
They were making tough catches, but they couldn't make simple catches. And the thing is, I've noticed that the last couple of years with this team. 2015, they had that same problem too.
Mm-hmm.
They could make these great catches, but they can't catch the simple ones, just like this.
Yeah.
Just the simple curl routes, they couldn't get those, and you think that's pretty much a basic route. They couldn't get it. You got to improve on that, though.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. But Karan made the tough catches. He had that diving catch. He probably should have had one in the first quarter, too. But it's just mechanics is what it is.
Yeah, one thing about offense I wanted to point out, too, was the offensive line. I know they had a couple new starters. Matt Jones making his first start at center. And, I thought for most of the night they protected Greer. They gave Greer all the time in the world to throw. And also with the Grant Lagerfelter right guard there in the fourth quarter, I believe, went down with a knee injury. The offensive line didn't miss a beat after that. They put in redshirt freshman Josh Sills, and on that final drive, they marched. I know they came up short on that final drive, but they marched right down the field. Offensive line didn't miss a beat. They looked. They didn't panic. So I thought offensive line. I think not a lot of people talked about them after the game, but I definitely thought they stood out.
They
offensively.
gave Greer a lot of time in the pocket, which was good.
Mm-hmm. So, and one thing we got to mention too is the field position in that game. Special teams again has been an issue for West Virginia in the past. kickoff return. They didn't have any. There's touchbacks. Virginia Tech kicked it out of the end zone. For West Virginia kickoff had problems, forcing touchbacks, and overall special teams. There was a clear difference when it came to field position. What do you guys think?
It really was. West Virginia could never really reach the end zone on kickoffs, but every time Virginia Tech's kicking it way out of the end zone. And that obviously that field position comes up big because Virginia Tech had that big kickoff return too.
Yeah, and then the one kickoff that went out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, yep. I think the first game.
I know it was
it'll get better.
I know it was a loss, but
Yeah,
I'm not all that concerned, honestly.
And you could tell from the players at the very end of the game. They knew they beat themselves. I thought they handled the loss really well, and I think that's something. You can tell that this team's mentality is good for this early in the season.
When I talked to Al-Rashid Benton, yesterday at the media session, he said it's on us. We still control our own destiny. All of our goals are still in place. That loss doesn't affect what we're trying to accomplish because you still have 11 more games in the season.
Yeah. And they got a lot. They have, like I said, this first game. They showed a lot. They showed what they're capable of. I think like Greer said post game. He said they have a lot to build off of. I think they're all excited about that. So moving on to this week, they play the East Carolina Pirates. West Virginia leads the all-time series 18-3. So what are you guys' keys? What do you think are the keys to the game?
The running game. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Like you said, though, get the run game going. I asked Spavital about that earlier, and Spavital said we're going to run the ball more as the games go on. It was just what they saw in the Virginia Tech defense. They wanted to pass it more, but before the season, too, we said this is still, I guess, more of a run-oriented team because this backfield is loaded. You've got Crawford, McCoy, Petaway, Alex Sinkfield. Everyone's high on him, but he's the fifth-string running back, which is scary. Yeah. But you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball, and you can't beat yourselves. I'm not concerned about them beating East Carolina, but you got to limit the breakdowns.
Yeah, East Carolina, too, is something to keep in mind. Last week against James Madison, they gave up 422 rushing yards. I can understand. James Madison, FCS champion, Dana had high praise for that school yesterday, saying they can play with anybody. But, yeah, I'm expecting West Virginia to just – I think they'll balance it out with passing and running, but I do think the running game is going to get going in this game. That's what I'm seeing out of them. But
that JMU running back that had most of the yardage against them, I believe that was the first time. That's the highest amount of rushing yards they've ever allowed a single rusher since WVU's KJ Harris in 2004. So interesting.
The one-hit wonder.
The one-hit wonder, yes.
Yeah, but one of my keys too is West Virginia. They can't overlook East Carolina. I know East Carolina. They're kind of they're a team that's kind of transitioning right now. But there's been some close games in the past between East Carolina and West Virginia, and they've showed they're capable of beating Power 5 teams.
I used to like that series too with East Carolina. I always liked those games.
Except for the one in 2008, I did not enjoy that.
Most of those games were good though. They really were.
They had a tough team. They had a tough team in 2008. I think back-to-back weeks they beat Virginia Tech and West Virginia. So
yeah, I like that they also play Virginia Tech, and the cool thing is about when they play Virginia Tech, they always play them good, and then they beat them. I feel like I see them beat Virginia Tech more often than not, and then they end up ranked, and then they tank later. But still, I like watching East Carolina.
They play Virginia Tech next week too, but that's pretty much it. I don't expect East Carolina to win this game, but West Virginia's biggest thing, like we said, just don't overlook anyone, don't make mistakes.
Yeah,
they'll win this game pretty handily.
Yeah, I think. It's going to be. I don't want to say it's going to be over, but yeah, by halftime, I think the game's going to be over. Those are my thoughts. You guys have any other final thoughts on this?
Not really, but I'm expecting West Virginia to be 1-1, like I'm sure everyone else is too.
All right,
they better be 1-1. If they're not 1-1, then I'm going to be annoyed.
I think a lot of people.
a lot of people here in Morgantown will be annoyed, but that will wrap it up for this section of the DA Sports Podcast. Next up, we'll have an interview with Kayla Morton of the East Carolina University Student Newspaper. So stay tuned here for an in-depth look at the East Carolina Pirates ahead of their matchup with West Virginia this Saturday.
So, welcome to part 3 of the DA Sports Podcast, here with Chris Jackson, Patrick Kotnik, John Lowe, and thanks to the people at the East Carolinian, which is East Carolina's student newspaper, for joining us and previewing Saturday's home opener at Milan Puskar Stadium. How's it going, guys?
Going well.
Thanks for having us.
It's awesome. So, obviously, East Carolina starts out 0-1. Just what were your biggest takeaways from that loss to James Madison?
We were just overpowered at the point of attack. James Madison definitely came out hungrier, and ECU fell pretty hard.
ECU was not able to stop the run against James Madison. We kind of underestimated them.
Anytime you give up 400 yards to an opponent, they're 400 yards rushing to an opponent. You're likely not going to win the game. Gave up 2 80-yard rushing touchdowns as well as a 70-yard rushing touchdown. You can't win a game doing that.
Gardner Minshew started our game off horribly. We couldn't get anything going. Our running back had, one carry during the game. He was projected to be running the whole game. When Thomas Sirk came in, he had a little bit of issues, but he definitely turned the game around for us and was able to put some points on the board.
What did the coaching staff say about Cirque, and what was the decision to make him in there? Was it just to get that spark? Because obviously Minshew was, 7 of 18?
Yeah. Honestly, we think that ECU's coaching staff wanted Cirque to be the starter all season, but they wanted to give Gardner the shot just because he was familiar with the offense, knew the players. But when you bring in a quarterback that your head coach already worked with at a different school, you're not going to bench him. So we think that the coaching staff is kind of what they wanted.
And he also gives ECU that dual threat capability.
Okay. And you talked about the running back position, too. On the depth chart, I noticed it as the running back depth chart says starting either Darrell Scott or Tyshawn Dye. Is there anyone really separating themselves there or no?
We're expecting to see a lot more of Deshaun Dye. He's a transfer from Clemson with a lot of experience. And Darrell Scott had some nice runs, but also looked just too slow to play.
Okay. And then, obviously, you lose Zay Jones, who's the all-time leader in receptions in Division I. Who are the receivers that are stepping up in his place? Because, obviously, that's a big guy to lose.
See, we were expecting Jimmy Williams to come out last week and really perform well. However, he kind of had a dud of a game, really. But we do expect him to start taking off, as well as DeAndre Ferrier. Got a couple different guys that really can't step up.
Quarterback to throw it to him first.
Ferrier dropped a 4th down touchdown catch just because he couldn't find it in the end zone. He also had a couple of plays that on the defensive side that were called just because of pass interference. So he would have had the biggest game on both sides of the ball for ECU had he not had those miscues. But he's definitely someone who, going forward, ECU should be able to rely on. They have him here for a reason.
ECU's wide receiver core might be the best thing they have because they even have Trayvon Brown, who could also be another deep threat for the team. And he was ineligible the whole season last year, and this year he's back and ready.
Guys, going into the West Virginia game this week, is there I can't imagine spirits are too high after losing to James Madison, but does it seem like rebuilding, with Cirque under center and with, a second-year head coach? Is there any kind of optimism at all, or what's going on?
The message all week has been bounce back. I talked to our linebacker Jordan Williams yesterday, and he talked a lot about how they got to bounce back and answer the bell.
And I don't think it's so much rebuilding with Cirque because during the whole offseason and preseason and camp, Cirque was getting these number 1 reps with the first team offense, as like Gardner mentioned.
Okay. Unlike these guys, I'm not as optimistic. I definitely foresee you guys just really doing whatever you want on offense against us. Will Greer, he's the real deal. I think he's going to put up some serious numbers on us.
Yeah, Tyler definitely had the closest prediction for our game. Aaron and I both had blowouts going in West Virginia's favor. He put the 50 spot, and I gave him 41. So.
What do you think it's going to look like on the rush defense against West Virginia? I don't mean to keep,
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm trying not to sound too pessimistic, but that was a pretty rough Saturday you guys had.
Honestly, I think both rush defenses are going to struggle on Saturday. I know you guys kind of had a tough game against Virginia Tech, and Josh Jackson was on the run a lot. But yeah, the same thing with us. We got exposed at the point of attack, and we're just expecting a lot from the secondary to step up and make open tackles.
While Will Greer did throw 50-something passes last week, don't expect to see that again this week. Definitely expect to see you guys definitely choosing to run the ball on us.
I think West Virginia had to kind of keep up with Virginia Tech last week, but they should be ahead in this game, so they might have to kill clock and rely on y'all running back.
Do you expect maybe Thomas Cirque to get a few more quarterback carries this week, especially from what you saw Josh Saxon do against West Virginia?
Absolutely.
Especially first week as the starter, or at least, first week as the starter. I think they're going to try to throw little wrinkles in for him, some read options, some different things to really get him going early, some screen passes, just to really get the momentum early. So I think.
What do you guys think are East Carolina's keys to the game? I know there's not a whole lot of optimism, but for East Carolina to improve this season in this time of transition, what are the keys for the Pirates on Saturday?
Establish a run game, definitely. opportunities so we can open up the pass game. And that's been every year.
And the receivers need to be on the same page with their quarterback. I mean, Minshew was throwing at their feet. They weren't running the right routes. But I know in practice that was stressed, and with Sirk having, I feel, more accuracy than Minshew, they should be able to convert more first downs to move them down the field, which will hopefully give them points.
And I talked all week about the point of attack. The defensive line has to get more aggressive and go back after the quarterback. We only had 1 sack last week. The offensive line gave our quarterback and running backs no time. So expect to see a much more tenacious offensive and defensive line.
Okay, and then obviously on defensive depth chart you have Tim Irvin, the Auburn transfer, starting at the Pirate position. Could you just tell us what the Pirate position is in Kenwick Thompson's defense?
The Pirate position's kind of just been a rover that Coach Montgomery's implemented over the last 2 years. He really loves this position, and he really loves Tim Irvin at this position. At the Pirate position, I know Aaron knows his name, who forced the fumble.
It was Devo Sutton or Devon Sutton.
Who forced the fumble at the Pirate position when Tim Irvin was playing the weak side linebacker. They put in a 4-2-5 defense now, so we only got 2 linebackers and 1 in the Pirate.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
I do have a question. You kind of touched on it a little bit, establishing a run game. But if you guys, if each of you guys are Scotty Montgomery on Saturday, what would you consider to be positive coming out of Saturday? What would be a win coming out of Saturday?
Well, I guess for this game, moral victories are probably what we're looking for here. Definitely see Thomas Sirk perform a little better. He had 2 interceptions last week. However, one of them wasn't really his fault. But we need to see some production from both he and our run game. We need to see something from our offense.
I think if they can clean up the miscues like I was talking about and get more completions, and the wide receivers will feel more capable of producing in games. So going forward, if they have that confidence, it'll pick up in the second half of the West Virginia game as well as games later on in the season. And by doing that, that also establishes the relationship between the quarterback and the receivers. And if they know they can rely on them, then even though they're going to try to establish the run game, they can use some pass options when they have to.
I believe just somebody on the ECU's office needs to step up and take charge and lead that team. If it's Thomas Sirk, if it's one of the receivers, or if it's one of the running backs, they need to start putting up numbers for their team and think of it as, I got to put the team on my back.
And I think a victory was, which sounds so strange if you look at the box score, was a lot of the defense. You take away those 2 80-yard touchdowns, and Carter Johnson's rushing stats go down a lot. Coach Montgomery talked all week about how if the offense would have scored, or at least kept the defense off the field for long enough to get rested, that they would have came out a bit more productive and maybe stopped some of those runs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, how would we follow you guys on social media during the game on Saturday?
So we have a Twitter. It's at Tech Sports, so it's going to be capital TEC _ capital S for sports and spell out sports. We don't live tweet, but we do most
Live tweet.
Yeah. Okay. We do live tweet. We did do that last year.
You'll hear a lot of us in the press box too. Pretty loud.
Is there chicken allowed?
I don't think anywhere.
How about we follow each 4 of you on Twitter and whatever social media you want to promote?
I can text Chris all of our information if that's just easier.
Yeah.
We also do our text first video. We have like a YouTube channel. We tweet that out also, so I can give all of you guys the links and stuff for that.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Okay.
And then what's your predictions for Saturday's game? Give us a score.
My prediction, 41-17 West Virginia. I think that when they get into the scoring positions, they're going to take advantage of it. Whether or not it's the red zone or not, it's a different story. I think they'll definitely be able to get into field goal range and we'll give them that credit. I think 5 touchdowns over 4 quarters is generous in ECU's case. If you guys get to the quarterback, you're going to score more points.
I feel like West Virginia's going to put up 50 points, and Will Greer says it all, and that's all you got to look at for see why. I think ECU will stop scoring after the second half. They'll come out kind of fiery, but they'll lose momentum going into halftime, and they won't be able to
120. ECU's actually played really well in big games. 2 years ago, we beat Virginia Tech at home. Last year, we were really uncompetitive for the most part. But this is really our first big game, and I really think you're going to see a pretty alive team.
I'm assuming you mean West Virginia wins that game.
West Virginia, yes, wins that game.
I have a prediction of 42-28 West Virginia. I think ECU gets their offensive act together a little bit. However, they're just not going to be able to keep up with Will Greer and just really the attack they got on offense over there.
Okay, I'll go 38-10. I think West Virginia is just going to basically end this game at halftime. Will Greer is going to go crazy, look at the run game going, and the defense will hold Thomas Sirk to maybe one touchdown in the first half.
I'm going to have West Virginia 45-7. I just think it's going to have a rushing offense. Its rushing offense is going to overwhelm East Carolina early, and I do think it's going to be over by halftime. And defense shows up and doesn't allow the big plays like last week. It'll definitely go in West Virginia's favor.
I'm going 42-27 West Virginia. I think East Carolina will keep it close for probably until midway through the third, just because, WVU is going to be riding a little bit high, even though they lost to Virginia Tech. I mean, that was still a pretty impressive loss. And plus, East Carolina, even if you go back to the days where West Virginia was in the Big East, East Carolina has been competitive against the Mountaineers. So I think it'll be a lot closer than a lot of people will expect, and expect Dana Holgerson to be on the hot seat again, because he couldn't blow out East Carolina in the first half. But I think it'll be closer than a lot of people are expecting.
Great.
Okay, well, awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on this podcast. We'll definitely see you guys Saturday, and you can follow the East Carolinian at tech_sports on Twitter. So, yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, good to see you guys. Thank you.
Yep.
And that wraps it up for the DA Sports Podcast for this week. Kickoff is at noon Saturday at Milan Puskar Stadium. We will have a live show at around, 10 o'clock?
Probably 10:30.
Okay, 10:30. Okay.
And then we'll be joined by those at the East Carolinian, hopefully, if we can, we can see them there. You can follow us at the DA Sports on Twitter and Instagram, as well as myself at JohnEver24, Chris Jackson at CJacksonWVU, and Patrick Kotnik at I believe it's Patrick_Kotnik?
No, but just Patrick Kotnik.
Patrick Kotnik, okay. I'm sorry. I'll eventually get that right. And for now, thank you for listening to the DA Sports Podcast.